Well, my siblings, my sisters, my brothers. Here we go again. Uvalde, Texas. Robb Elementary School. 18 children shot dead by an 18-year-old boy. Young man, if you prefer. It's hard for me to think of him as anything but a boy. Reportedly armed with a handgun and a rifle. Other reports that I've read said shotgun. He also killed 3 adults. Shot his own grandmother as well, but I'm unsure if she's dead or not. Flags have been ordered at half-mast. Joe Biden has, by the time you see this, given his address. This early in the incident, details are sketchy, so I won't try to report on any facts of the case beyond what I've just stated. Time is needed to gather information and to assess the true narrative nature of the day's events. America continues to get this wake-up call, but we keep hitting that snooze button, don't we? Tony Gonzalez, representative for the district this happened in, has tweeted on multiple occasions that he will fight tirelessly to protect your children? No, your guns. I voted no on 2 gun control measures in the House today. I am a proud supporter of the Second Amendment and will do everything I can to oppose gun grabs by the far left. The far left will never stop trying to take Americans' guns. I am proud to fight for the Second Amendment in Washington. The radical left wants to take away your guns. Not on my watch. Proud to defend your Second Amendment. Now, I don't happen to believe that gun control is the solution to this problem, but certainly wouldn't hurt anything. But after Sandy Hook, many of us said, if this doesn't get gun control passed, nothing will. And at this point, it feels like America's made its choice. We decided that the rights of hobbyists to own guns without even the most basic of impediments trumps the lives of children and adults alike who are murdered by them on a daily basis in this country. It's odd how closely this mirrors Sandy Hook, isn't it? Right down to the killer murdering or attempting to murder, whatever the case may be, a matriarchal family member just prior to the massacre. One has to believe that the reactions of the people will be the same, right? Liberals, gun control. Conservatives, mental health. The argument will rage on for a week or two. Gun sales will skyrocket because, of course, the gun industry deserves to be rewarded for this. A weak piece of legislation might even be drafted, but it won't pass. And soon enough, we'll move on to our next fucking travesty. It's become all too familiar, the song and dance. La-da-da, hasn't it? Even me making a video like this, pointing out the stagnation of our nation on this issue, has become rote, just part of the procedure. We will hear from those who admonish us not to politicize this event, as though it weren't inherently a political issue. The solution to this problem, whatever it may be, is political in nature. To not talk about politics now is basically just saying you don't care, which I suppose is what some people truly desire. They want us to just carry on as though everything were normal, because in the United States of America, a bunch of kids getting their brains blown out by a fucking lunatic is normal. It's been normal for decades. It should be politicized as powerfully and as strongly as possible, because to politicize it is to demand solutions, to demand that something, fucking anything, be done. And we're also, of course, going to hear from those who think, or pretend to think, that this event is all a false flag, designed to deprive them of their precious fucking guns, which they love more than their fellow human beings. To those people, I say, get off the path that you walk, or one day you will lay beneath it. And to those who treat so-called men like Alex Jones with anything other than absolute contempt, to those who meme about him like he's an okay guy or platform him like he deserves to be anything other than a reviled pariah, those who cheapen and diminish the lives of those who have been butchered here today, deserve to feel about as safe as the school children of America do right now. These conspiracy mongers are naught but sleaze-soaked mountains of excrement, filling the air with their bilious odor every time they speak, May 1,000 rats with gangrenous little teeth gnaw at their helpless limbs as they rot and pustulate. I'd call them scum, but that would be a grave offense to scum. To spit upon them would be a disgraceful waste of my beautiful, precious spit. But let's not waste any emotional energy on despising those subhumans. If they would rather bury their heads in the sand, I say we oblige them and move on. Now, I've seen several people on Twitter claim that the shooter, who was of Hispanic descent, was an illegal immigrant. As far as I can tell, he was not. Even Breitbart News, who are just to the right of Hitler, are reporting that the killer was a U.S. citizen. I think it's very telling that last week, when a white supremacist murdered 10 people, the right-wingers were so keen to distract from the shooting. What about, you know? What about Waukesha? What about the New York City subway shooter? You know? What about this? What about that? What about? Ask you, what about? That ought to distract them. Nobody pay attention to this, because what about? They were desperate not to talk about the shooting and the connection the killer had to white supremacy. But now that a brown-skinned perpetrator has claimed some lives, we should all be hyper-focused on his race. We should make up stories about him crossing the border to bolster our crappy immigration arguments. Well, even if he did, the other shooters didn't cross the border, did they? Buffalo's shooter didn't cross the border. Adam Lanza didn't cross the border. So talking about the border in relation to this issue is a complete fucking non sequitur and a feeble distraction. The border has not a goddamn thing to do with this. Anyone who claims that it does can be written off as a hack or dismissed as an idiot. Now, I've been speaking lately of my desire to rule this world. And I don't know how many of you at this point think I'm just memeing, trying to force a little meme, versus how many of you are true believers. But I promise you, my desire and ambitions are genuine. And I think that you, as my siblings and my subjects, deserve to know how I would handle this situation. So here's a few things that would happen. So first of all, every family affected would be granted access to top-tier counselors with impeccable track records to help them emotionally process the devastating loss they've suffered. And highly trained investigators would comb over every aspect of the killer's life prior to the killings, creating a comprehensive psychological profile to be compared to the psychological profiles of other mass murderers so that we can understand exactly what creates these people and what sort of catalysts cause them to act out in the ways that they do. Armed with this comprehensive picture of the psychology of mass killers, we will begin intensively revamping our social institutions from the ground up to identify them and intervene in their lives before they act out and kill a bunch of people. Now, as far as gun control goes, access to guns will be limited to those who have completed gun control training, demonstrated mental competency, and every new gun that we make will have a chip implanted in it so that it only fires in the hands of its owner and it can be tracked. Guns that don't meet those criteria will be destroyed, confiscated, or retrofitted, whatever's appropriate on a case-by-case basis. But I see no reason to overburden our prisons with illegal gun owners, so there will be no penalty as long as they don't engage in violence to protect their guns. The reality is that no matter what measures are taken, there's still going to be plenty of illegal guns in circulation. There's too many guns now for us to feasibly confiscate them, and as 3D printer technology improves, more and more are going to be created illegally. So we have to acknowledge that the extent of what we can do with gun control is fairly limited. We could take some measures, but they will ultimately be thwarted by any criminal who is sufficiently determined to do so. Now, they're still worth it, but they're more to prevent impulse shootings than planned and coordinated attacks like what happened today. Another thing that needs to happen, areas that are under threat from shooters, schools, large stores, public gathering spaces, etc., should be under the protection of armed security specialists. Now, these specialists should not be tasked with any other job other than thwarting that level of violence. If they see someone shoplifting, that's not their job. Maybe they call it into the normal security person, but that's it. They do not engage. They don't engage with people having scuffles or any other minor shit. They only engage with anything that is a lethal threat. Anything other than that is beyond their purview. These specialists should be impeccably trained, excellent marksmen, cool-headed under pressure, ready to act at a moment's notice. Now, I recognize that a person meeting those criteria would probably get extremely bored in a scenario where they're perpetually waiting around for something that's probably not going to happen, so we're also going to have to come up with some ways to stimulate them, maybe have some interesting moonlighting assignments or something like that. Hopefully, as we get better at identifying and preventing shootings, psychologically this position will be phased out. Now, here's another thing I think is a broader issue that goes beyond just this problem, but poverty and purposelessness, I think, play a major role in why so many people, especially young men, turn to antisocial acts of violence. We need to be more cognizant of imbuing people with a sense of purpose in life, not just creating worker drones to make sandwiches and run cash machines. These rote tasks can be dehumanizing and lead to spiritual and intellectual malaise. Because people need to be appreciated and to see that the tasks that they perform are of value to the society in which they live. One of the gravest sins of capitalism is that instead of a person who makes a cheeseburger being seen as providing his fellow human beings with food, he's seen as this lowly grunt piece of shit, seen by himself as doing nothing more noble than throwing slop together to collect an inadequate paycheck. Every single person in this equation needs a fucking attitude adjustment, in my opinion. The person making you your burger is not a drone. He's a person providing you with sustenance and pleasure in the form of something tasty. They deserve to value themselves and to be valued in terms of the important function that they serve. They should be venerated and treated with respect and compensated in accordance with their contribution. And if you think they don't contribute, then do me a favor and never order food prepared by anyone else other than yourself ever again. And even if someone out there provides a good or a service that you personally have no use for, perhaps someone else that you know or do rely on does have use for it. I honestly believe that a great many of our problems in this country and in this world could be solved if we were more strongly appreciative of what others do for us, and more strongly appreciative of ourselves for what we do for others. And when I'm king, and I will be king, I will do everything I can to foster that mentality, though I will not hold my tongue against those who deserve scorn. Yet, my nature is one of forgiveness. Desist from your villainy, and you will not be treated like a villain. I do not believe that people are good or evil. I believe that good and evil are always a choice in the moment, and sometimes the choice is easy and other times it's hard. I believe that making the good choice easier is half the solution to our current woes, and the other half is imbuing people with the strength to make the good choice even when evil is easier. Now, as a nihilist, I of course don't believe in objective good and evil, but I do have my personal definitions. I should explain them briefly here. Good is that which benefits society and its peoples. Evil is that which harms society and its peoples. Of course, there's even more subjectivity to unpack there, but we don't need to worry about that right now. Instead, let us offer up a prayer to those who have perished in this nightmarish act of cruelty today. And I remind you all once again that we pray not to God, but to ourselves, to sharpen our minds and to focus our wills. Our power, which burns within us, exquisite be our might. Our kingdom come, our will be done on earth as it is within us. Give us this day our fondest wish, and improve ever upon us as we strive ever to improve ourselves. And lead us not into corruption or malaise, but give us strength to persist in the face of adversity. 21 lives have been taken needlessly from us by a loathsome lost soul on a mission of evil. May the sickness of this rotten death urge vacate our collective being. May the exploiters of tragedy find that their words turn to shit in their mouths. May the deniers of tragedy find that they are denied mercy until they repent. May the cruelty of this world be alleviated by the love and fellowship and brotherhood and sisterhood and siblinghood that we may find in ourselves. To love one another and to serve one another and to serve those that love us. And may those whose souls are on this day scorched with pain and anguish find their way to the balm of kindness. Let those who have been so darkly touched by the worst of humanity see now the best of it. And may our differences be cast aside and all the bullshit cut through until all that is left is the truth. Let it be so.